Hello and welcome to this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit and brought to you in association with the various agencies of the Ministry. On this week's presentation, we bring you a first crop review, looking at rice here. We're looking at some of the challenges farmers faced during the crop, the interventions that were offered by the Ghana Rice Development Board, how those interventions panned out for the farmers, and of course, at the end of the day, the production figures for the first crop. We'll also be looking at exports for the first quarter of 2019, and of course bring you all the details relative to all that. We will be hearing about an alarming development within the agriculture sector, more so the rice industry, the advent of illegal varieties of rice. If a particular variety or seed is not registered or okayed by the relevant authorities under the Seed Act, then that particular seed or variety of whatever crop that derives from that is deemed illegal and under the Act can be destroyed in the field wherever it is found. We will be hearing more about that in this special edition of This Week in Agriculture. This Week in Agriculture is produced for television by Matrix Video Productions and Advertising based in East Berbice. I'm your producer and host, Christopher Holder. We will be back after these messages.
Here's an important notice. Do you know that it is illegal to import, store, distribute, sell, and purchase antibiotics without a license or prescription, as the case may be? According to the Antibiotic Act of 1952, owners of livestock and other animals are not permitted to purchase and use antibiotics unless prescribed by a veterinarian. It should be noted that the misuse of antibiotics could result in the development of resistance to the very antibiotics, which in turn will pose health risk to the animal and to humans. The GLDA advises that farmers should not administer antibiotics to animals unless prescribed by a veterinarian. Non-compliance with this act will result in fines and imprisonment. A message from the Ghana Livestock Development Authority, Ministry of Agriculture.
Coconut farmers across Guyana are invited to visit Hope Estate for top quality coconut seedlings in any quantity. Now available are 5, 3, and 18-month varieties. It should be noted that the spacing of your coconut seedlings is determined by the variety you are planting. Persons interested in purchasing seedlings may make contact with Hope Estate on telephone numbers 256-0599 or 663-2709. A message from the management of Hope Estate, Ministry of Agriculture.
The management of the MMA ADA wishes to remind members of the public that dumping of garbage along the road shoulders of the main access road to the MMA lands is an illegal practice and will not be condoned. The MMA has noted with alarm that the practice of dumping garbage alongside the roads at night has been increasing in frequency. Not only does it make for an eyesore, the garbage has been getting into the drainage and irrigation channels, causing blockage to the free flow of water. The authority is warning that its rangers have been put on notice and will be on the lookout for persons engaging in this practice. Persons caught will be handed over to the police for charges to be filed. A message from the MMA ADA, Ministry of Agriculture.
Red rice is similar to cultivated rice. It is often referred to as overhead or overhang and is often taller than the cultivated rice. However, because of its similarity to rice, it is regarded as a problematic weed since its control by chemical means is limited or near impossible. The main source of red rice infestation is rice seeds contaminated with weed seeds. The other source is red rice seeds left in the soil from previous crops. This means that any control measure should be aimed at the reduction of infestation from these sources. Red rice is a heavy seed producer, more than 1,000 seeds per plant. Seeds can remain inactive in the soil until conditions for growth become favorable. It is therefore imperative that farmers allow for a grow-out period every crop before sowing is done. In this regard, farmers should never rush through land preparation on lands that are known to have red rice infestations. Instead, the following steps should be taken. Burn the field after harvest. After the first plow, the field should be irrigated lightly so as to encourage germination and establishment of red rice seeds. The weedy seedlings should then be left to develop to the 2 to 3 leaf stage and then destroyed by plowing. Another flush of weeds would be encouraged, and this should be killed by another round of plowing. This should be done as part of land preparation for at least 2 successive crops to reduce infestation levels. A message from the Rice Research Station, Guyana Rice Development Board, Ministry of Agriculture. Rice crop for 2019 has been harvested for the most part, with just a few late sowers to harvest yet, and the numbers are very good, despite the challenges farmers face, mainly with access to irrigation water, and later with an invasion of the dreaded paddy bugs. Production surpassed that recorded for the same period last year, with the average yield moving up to 6 tons per hectare. The prolonged dry spell has been bad, and in the end, good for our farmers. Bad in the sense that for farmers in some parts of the rice-growing areas, accessing irrigation water in a timely manner proved difficult, resulting in delayed sowing and planting outside the season. The dry conditions proved bad also in relation to the creation of conditions ideal for the proliferation of the paddy bugs, which was an everyday problem for farmers across the rice-growing belt, but more so for those in some parts of Region 2, where farmers discovered as much as 80% damage at the mill in at least one case. Farmers in both Regions 5 and 6 also reported significant damage from the paddy bugs, but the percentage of damage recorded was significantly less. So what are the numbers relative to the first crop harvest of 2019? GRDB's General Manager, Nizam Hassan, gives us an overview.
Despite the challenges experienced by farmers during the first crop production for 2019, the crop itself performed very well, and we have seen the yields are higher than previous crops' performance. Challenges are referred to. Earlier in the crop, there were some water issues in some of the areas, and these were addressed by the relevant water managers, eventually providing water to those areas that were constrained by the supply of water. And then as the crop progressed, there was the major issue of paddy bugs, which itself the board recognizes that paddy bug is a pest of economic significance and has been working along with farmers and other stakeholders to address this issue. We've issued a number of advisories, we've held hundreds of demonstrations out in the fields with farmers. We've done a lot of publications and infomercials, and basically extending the education to the farmers to advise them how they can go about tending to this bug. That said, the crop in terms of harvest did well. We've harvested over 90% of the crop as I speak now, yielding over 6 tons per hectare, which is above the national average for 2018. Let me explain to you what I'm saying. In Region 2, it's 98% has been harvested from that 13,000 hectares, 13,281 hectares, and that region itself was, there were some issues with paddy bug. We had an intervention in that region. The average yield for that region is 5.74 tons per hectare. In Region 3, we have 5.49 tons per hectare in Region 3. Region 4, we've said this many times before, Region 4, it's small acreages that are planted, 3,500, almost 3,600 hectares, and that region yielded 7 tons per hectare. Region 5, we sowed almost 40,000 hectares, 39,900, and it had a yield of 5.7 tons per hectare. And Region 6, 23,724 hectares, yielding 6.9, almost 7 tons per hectare. So the overall yield for the country thus far is 6.07 to be exact, but let's say 6 tons per hectare, which is an excellent performance despite the challenges they experienced.
Over the past few weeks, several individuals, And as recent as this past week, the Central Quarantine Chamber of Commerce criticized the GRDB and the government for not doing enough to help farmers who were affected by the paddy bug problem during the first crop, and alleged that as a result, farmers have lost in excess of $1 billion, or an average of 14,000 bags of paddy. However, the GRDB general manager has described this as an inaccurate representation of the situation, calling for a more responsible role on the part of all stakeholders. He said the production figures, coupled with export figures for the corresponding period, debunks these claims of billion-dollar losses in Berbice.
We have seen a number of media houses reporting, and there have been a number of articles speaking to paddy bug and paddy bug issues and damages. We've seen one private sector body coming out and saying that there's going to be a huge amount, or there has been a large dollar value of losses. This has not been what we have seen, and sometimes it's unfortunate that some stakeholders and some persons in the public will make comments without being properly informed. It does not augur well for the industry. When people make comments like this, it gives a bad picture in terms of our marketing, our markets, in terms of our performance. Because when we look at the first quarter's export, for the period January to March, we exported 103,024 tons of products, compared to 49,628 for the corresponding period in 2018. This is more than double the export. So where did this product come from? We have product and we've been exporting. The value of our exports for the first quarter of 2019 is $41,750,000 US dollars, compared to 19.3 million US for the first quarter of 2018.
A look at the production figures reveals a clearer picture of how the regions performed. In Region 6, a total of close to 24,000 hectares were sown. Of this amount, total lands harvested thus far is just 19,000 hectares, with a yield of 131,000 metric tons of paddy. Across in Region 5, a total of just under 40,000 hectares of land was cultivated, with a total of 35,689 hectares harvested to date. The harvested paddy amounts to 206,121 metric tons of paddy. In Region 2, the region hardest hit by the paddy bug, a harvest of just over 75,000 metric tons of paddy was gained from just over 13,000 hectares. In Region 3, just over 40,000 metric tons were harvested from 7,293 hectares. In Region 4, from a harvest of 3,388 hectares, a total of 23,537 metric tons of paddy was realized. However, despite the good overall production result recorded, there were issues at the mill for the farmers. In Berbice, for example, farmers complained that their grades were severely affected due to the damage to the grains by the paddy bugs. Paddy bug damage usually occurs from the 60-day mark and continues for about 20 days onward, all through what is referred to as the milk stage, when the panicles of the rice is just forming. The bugs, if left in the field, would suck the milk from the panicles, resulting in that area becoming black. It was reported in a particular section of the media that farmers were claiming that the recently released GRDB 15 was recording the highest degree of damage, way above any other variety, as if to say the bugs had a preference for the specific variety. I wondered whether this was possible. I took my cameras on the road for an investigative look at the reality on the ground. So at every mill, GRDB grading officers would observe the grading process in a random, unannounced manner. If a farmer is unhappy with the grade given him by a mill, then he can appeal the grade to the GRDB. That sample from the mill will then be regraded by the GRDB grader, and things could turn out in favor of the farmer in that he is awarded a better grade, and ultimately a better price per bag. Mr. Steve Light is a grading officer attached to the GRDB's Berbice operations. I asked him whether he or any of the GRDB grading officers had observed that there was more damage to the GRDB 15 as against any other variety.
In terms of paddy damage across the region for this first crop, 2019 spring crop, there has been a large percentage of paddy bug damage observed at the mills, with the paddy intake being going in at the different mills in the regions. I can safely say that all varieties being affected with the paddy bug. No variety has been spared. So we can single out one variety as being the variety where the paddy bug would have dominated. All varieties suffer damage, grain percentage losses. In the region here we have 5 locations where paddy are being purchased. For example, we have 3 locations on the road. That's mainly Prasad and Company Limited, Asian County at Taloji. We also have Mr. Rambridge. He did some purchasing at Bengal with his small mills. And if we are to compare the damage in those 3 locations, it's about, let's say, 15% damage. But you'll have some of the damage grain percentage per week would have surpassed 20% on average.
What are some of the factors that can contribute to high paddy bug damage?
Well, the main factor contributing to high paddy bug damage is the damage that would have been done to the crop during the milky stage by the paddy bugs. Because during the milky stage of the grains, the paddy bugs would feed. They would suck the milk or the juice out of the grains, and those areas remain black, brownish, causing a damage defect to the grains.
The percentage of damage to the paddy supplied to millers by the farmers is determined through a specific process called grading. Explaining this process to me was Mr. Light.
Well, this is a paddy sample that we would have received for clean and dry from farmers. So what we are doing here is just coning and quartering. The farmer name here is Mr. Hardin. He would have brought in the paddy yesterday. So what I'm actually doing here, this is the bulk of the sample, so I'm just trying to mix so that we could have a representative sample, we mix the sample totally. Because we have a Borneo divider there that we use for mixing and subdividing, but because of this chaffy nature of this paddy, you can't really pass it through the Borneo, so we will do a hand mixture. You call it a coning quartering. We will divide the sample into 4 parts. Then we take a little bit here, a little bit, keep mixing and take a little bit from here, keep mixing until you come up to a sizable amount of sample. Okay? So this sample now has to be clean to determine the moisture content. After mixing the sample has to be clean so that we could determine the dockage percentage. Right? Dockage means all non-rice components constituting the sample. That's insect parts, seeds, muds, anything other than paddy is referred to as dockage or inert matter. Yeah, good trick. Expand the rubber, right?
We have a dockage. Straws, wind paddy.
Those are what we refer to as dockage. After obtaining the clean paddy, we will do a moisture determination, we refer to as a moisture test, to determine the water content in the grains at this point of time. So this equipment is a Dickie-Jan moisture meter that we use to determine moisture percentage. So what we do, we select the page, it's page 1. We go to page 3, key 4. I see rice long rough. I'm telling you, please wait. So what we do, we pour the sample into the funnel onto the rim. And as we get the indication of the meter to press load to begin, so we press load to begin, the paddy goes into the test cells, and the meter is saying please wait for the moisture percentage to be displayed. So the moisture percentage is displayed here. It's 18.5% water content. Now we have a bias here of 0.7%. Bias means plus or minus at the time when it was calibrated by the Bureau of Standards. So what we do, we remove the bias, 0.7, so this would give us a 17.8% moisture when we make the bias adjustment.
Is this the right moisture content? Is this good moisture content? Or?
Yeah, that is good moisture content to start drying, because you could do rapid drying from 17.8 or 18.5 straight down to 16%, and from there on you could allow the grains to be tempered for 8 hours, and then you go back and you take out 1% after 8 hours drying. So you get good drying coming down to 13.5% moisture for milling. As we are shelling the paddy, we're using the paddy sheller to remove the shells, exposing the kernel to determine the quality factor defects in this sample of paddy. So Mr. Walcott is doing the shelling. So pass it about 2 or 3 times. Now this is the sample we obtain after shelling, the paddy sample. Now after obtaining the shell sample, the sample has to be mixed componently and subdivided into a working size sample of 35 grams. So we use the Borneo divider to mix and subdivide the sample into the required working size sample of 45 grams. So Mr. Walcott is mixing and subdividing and reducing the sample into 35 grams. After finish subdividing, we go to the gram scale, electronic gram scale, to weigh 35 grams, working size sample, paddy sample. That's the required amount of grams we use to do a paddy grade analysis. After weighing our 35 grams, we proceeded to place the sample onto the working table, and this is what the sample looked like after all the kernels have been exposed. So what we do now, we would analyze to the following analysis to determine how much damage, how much reds, how much sharky grains in this sample. Yeah, we have just completed the grading analysis of the variety orders. It's a illegal variety that farmers cultivating in the region. So we term it as orders. We don't know what it is, but it's paddy, so it was orders. So we would have done the analysis on the 35 gram sample. This is the damaged kernels. We would have identified and separated and weighed into percentage and calculated into percentage, right? Weight into grams, calculate it in percentage, right? So for the damaged kernels, after weight we get 3.8 grams. 3.8 times 100 divided by 35, we get 10.8%, which is this damage. Now for the standard, the requirement for C grade is 4.5. We have the standard chart here, GYS 211-2014. For C grade, requirement for damaged kernels is 4.5%, and in that case we got 10.8% damaged kernels. So it's a sample grade or substandard. Right? In terms of reds, we have 1.7% reds. Green, we get 0.8 green. Right? So the damage here is very high.
So there is the claim, as published by Guyana Times, that the paddy bug seems to prefer the GRDB 15 as against any other variety. So what does the science say? I asked research scientist and head of the GRDB's research station at Burma if he has ever heard of such a thing.
First thing is, I want to be very clear that all the varieties that we have in Guyana are equally susceptible to paddy bug damage. And I want to go a step forward and say there is no variety, even out of Guyana, that is resistant to paddy bug damage or to the attack of paddy bug. So this, and basically the attack of the paddy bug or the damage has been done after flowering, as we know, till up to the grain hard dough stage, which is around 20 days after flowering. So during this window period, the period of around 20 days, 15-20 days, the crop is at the most susceptible stage to be attacked by the paddy bug. And it is very, very important for us to monitor our field on a daily basis. And if you can do it twice per day, it's better for us. And follow up with the appropriate spray solutions, which should be carefully administered. It is not just probably monitor and you send someone to go and spray. And for a season that we have just coming through here now, it's very tough. The paddy bug population has been very high in most areas, and we see constant migration from field to field. We have seen constant migration from the backlands coming into the cultivation. So we have to equip ourselves with a necessary workforce, the appropriate chemical, and I must say appropriate chemical, because also what we have seen during this season, we have seen the chemicals that we would have relied on did not work very well, and we also went further to take a second string chemical, myself, the farmers, and it didn't work very well. So you must have products that are very authentic. You may spend $1 or $2 more, and once you have administered those products as per the protocol, you would have able to manage the paddy bug to a good level, which would not allow you to get beyond the prescribed damages for an A or B or C grade. We've been preaching this all over. However, when we go out in the field, we still see farmers trying to cover an entire acre with one motor blower. It's not possible. You may apparently look at the mist is going on the leaves like that, but it's not sufficient solution to kill the bugs.
Another scientist, CEO of the National Agriculture Research and Extension Institute, Dr. Udo Homnot, was also invited to give his take on the claim.
That one is a little difficult for me to comprehend, because paddy bug attacks, once paddy bug is around, I don't think they have a preference for anything. The paddy bug will come at the time when they just start getting at the milk stage of the crop, and which lasts for about a week. I'm not sure if the GRDB 15 has a longer, what they call the milk stage. I doubt it. I think they're about the same or it's shorter. So it's difficult. The paddy bug doesn't feed on the leaf anyway. I mean, it might have place to hide or whatever and multiply more. But I can't understand how paddy bug will have a preference for one variety over another. Because they come at the stage, or they're there, or they're ready to attack the grains at that milk stage, as we call it.
Red rice is similar to cultivated rice. It is often referred to as overhead or overhang and is often taller than the cultivated rice. However, because of its similarity to rice, it is regarded as a problematic weed since its control by chemical means is limited or near impossible. The main source of red rice infestation is rice seeds contaminated with weed seeds. The other source is red rice seeds left in the soil from previous crops. This means that any control measure should be aimed at the reduction of infestation from these sources. Red rice is a heavy seed producer, more than 1,000 seeds per plant. Seeds can remain inactive in the soil until conditions for growth become favorable. It is therefore imperative that farmers allow for a grow-out period every crop before sowing is done. In this regard, farmers should never rush through land preparation on lands that are known to have red rice infestations. Instead, the following steps should be taken. Burn the field after harvest. After the first plow, the field should be irrigated lightly so as to encourage germination and establishment of red rice seeds. The weedy seedlings should then be left to develop to the 2 to 3 leaf stage and then destroyed by plowing. Another flush of weeds would be encouraged, and this should be killed by another round of plowing. This should be done as part of land preparation for at least 2 successive crops to reduce infestation levels. A message from the Rice Research Station, Guyana Rice Development Board, Ministry of Agriculture.
The management of the MMA ADA wishes to remind members of the public that dumping of garbage along the road shoulders of the main access road to the MMA lands is an illegal practice and will not be condoned. The MMA has noted with alarm that the practice of dumping garbage alongside the roads at night has been increasing in frequency. Not only does it make for an eyesore, the garbage has been getting into the drainage and irrigation channels, causing blockage to the free flow of water. The authority is warning that its rangers have been put on notice and will be on the lookout for persons engaging in this practice. Persons caught will be handed over to the police for charges to be filed. A message from the MMA ADA, Ministry of Agriculture.
Here's an important notice. Do you know that it is illegal to import, store, distribute, sell, and purchase antibiotics without a license or prescription, as the case may be? According to the Antibiotic Act of 1952, owners of livestock and other animals are not permitted to purchase and use antibiotics unless prescribed by a veterinarian. It should be noted that the misuse of antibiotics could result in the development of resistance to the very antibiotics, which in turn will pose health risk to the animal and to humans. The GLDA advises that farmers should not administer antibiotics to animals unless prescribed by a veterinarian. Non-compliance with this act will result in fines and imprisonment. A message from the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, Ministry of Agriculture.
Coconut farmers across Guyana are invited to visit the Hope Estate for top quality coconut seedlings in any quantity. Now available are 5, 3, and 18-month varieties. It should be noted that the spacing of your coconut seedlings is determined by the variety you are planting. Persons interested in purchasing seedlings may make contact with Hope Estate on telephone numbers 256-0599 or 663-2709. A message from the management of Hope Estate, Ministry of Agriculture. Throughout the growing period for the first crop, the Ministry of Agriculture, through the NDIA and GRDB, has been providing strategic and continuing interventions on behalf of the farmer. In Essequibo, farmers were in the early stages of the crop faced with a potentially devastating shortage of water for irrigation. But through the decision to pump water on a 24-hour basis into the irrigation system, farmers in the affected areas were able to save the crop. Later on, Essequibo farmers in Affiance, Somerset, Lima Sands, etc. were hard hit by the paddy bugs. Here again, the GRDB provided continuous and ongoing assistance in helping farmers better manage the pest, resulting in them being able to minimize the damage recorded at the mill. President of the Essequibo Paddy Producers Association, Mr. Nath Ram, has lauded government for the assistance his members received, which has resulted in a good first crop.
This crop here that we are in, the autumn crop, was a very challenging crop for rice farmers, but the government of the day has made significant contribution in assisting farmers. To start with, the government had expended over $40 million in assisting farmers in terms of pumping water for them. Had it not been for the government, a lot of rice crop would have been lost in Region 2. But with the intervention, it has helped tremendously. The present crop is about 98% harvested. Damages vary from as much as 84%. But if you should put it in a nutshell, it was not that severe. A very few farmers would have gotten that percentage of damage, right? It fluctuates, it varies from 3%, 5%, and 10%, whatever. But it was not that severe, with the exception, as I said, of a few farmers who crop would have been damaged. GRDB played an important role in assisting farmers by helping them to get their plots sprayed and providing the chemicals and looking over the whole entire operation in terms of spraying.
Mr. Ram, a farmer himself and a member of the board of directors of the GRDB, feels that the effective management of the paddy bug calls for a collective approach by both the regional authorities and the farmers themselves.
With respect to the control of paddy bugs, if we are to manage the system properly, first and foremost, we need a water schedule. Having a water schedule in place would help farmers to sow in blocks. As long as farmers sow in blocks based on the water schedule, you would have the crop would come in all actually together, and farmers would be spraying together, right? If farmers do not sow in blocks, what would happen that those plots that are sown late, you would find that the bugs would be there, they will multiply there, and those who would have sown earlier, right, those plots would be infested more with the bugs, because those that would have sown late, the bugs would have bred there and then move across to the farmers who would have sown. So sowing in blocks would tremendously help in the control of paddy bugs. So because everybody would be spraying together, right, and you can be able to manage the bugs better.
I spoke with farmers across the country about their experiences with the paddy bugs during the crop and how this effort was impacted by the interventions of the GRDB's entomology team led by entomologist Dr. Vivian Baharali.
Yeah, the crop, well, the bug was real plenty, you know, the bug. Since me start plant rice, I never experienced all this bug. The bug was plenty. And since the paddy since the rice start there, I spray it every other day. Every other day, I run like about 22 spray on each plant. Each plant will be like a 50 meter. And when we result, like, you get some damage, and some of them, you get some A, B, C, you get like some 5%. Some of them go like 7, some go 8.
What's the variety?
Yeah.
What's the variety?
The variety of the paddy? Yeah, me throw like most of the paddy is 15 paddy me throw. And the paddy bear nice, you know, the paddy bear good. Like some farmers complain the paddy light, right? But me like for me crop, me not find it light. Me use like a little extra thing, like I use a little boram. We use 15 last those, so I mean, if that them fertilizer make me get extra weight.
This crop is very high in bug damage, very high. Get about 25% damage in bug.
Tell me about how you applied your spray program.
Well, according to the spray what the GRDB prescribed to you, you actually doing like every 4 days. You gotta spray.
Was the intervention by GRDB effective? Was it able to manage the bugs a little better?
Yeah, he managed a little better, but not to the extent.
What do you think is needed?
I think they should come up with an idea like more better medicine like to kill the bug immediately. But these drugs what they're using right now just kill and new one coming back steady.
So then it's not a question of killing the bug, it's more coming?
Yeah, as how you kill today, when you go back tomorrow you see they're dead. Then when you go back the next day, when next set don't come again. So as soon as you spray today, go back tomorrow, you find a next set, the same amount, they're back there again. So the drugs are killing, but more still coming daily by daily.
So how do you think you can deal with that?
I think the best way to deal with it is like in the savanna, the back there need to spray. Need to spray like one aerial spray.
For this crop we had the bugs them come down early, and then with the help from GRDB, right? Well, with the spraying they help you with the chemical and add they show us how to spray, how much work to make, and how to mix the chemical, and we get good result. Because from when we dropped the percentage from 30% damage, we dropped to 4 point something, 3% damage and so. So it helped a lot. So that's about it.
Well, we get good result because at least we take their advice, and we only get about 3% and 3.5% damage or so. We take their advice.
GRDB, with the assistance they give with paddy bug, it was very good, regardless some of the farmer wanting place to get and some didn't get. But I content with what little assistance they give to me. The assistance to me was strong, because some morning they call, when you wake up 5 o'clock, you gotta reach at the field for get at them, because they say you gotta spray early. But it was very good, the assistance.
Okay, the assistance of the extension officers, they will guide me through most of the crops. In terms of paddy bug, they show me the rate of application of the job chemical, different chemical, different application.
And at the end of it, how you came out?
Successful.
The Guyana Rice Development Board has announced that it has mandated its Extension Department to revamp its efforts with a view to expanding the range of farmer education interventions in order to ensure that Guyana's rice farmers are availed of the latest information on modern farming methods and cutting-edge pest and disease management. Not only is the message going to be more informative, the methods of communicating with the farmers will now incorporate all the new media that exists in the world that's just a few clicks away. GRDB's General Manager, Nizam Hassan, explains.
As part of our reinvigoration efforts of extending the knowledge with regards to rice cultivation, we have paid and are paying strong attention to the way we communicate to our stakeholders, the farmers primarily. Towards this end, we're going to be using all forms of communication, especially the social media platform. Traditionally, we know that the one-on-one, the bottom houses and reaching the farmers in their fields have been the approaches. This we will continue to do, but we will add and extend towards the other forms of communication, especially like I mentioned, social media, especially because as more and more persons go online, and I'm speaking about persons with smartphones and computers and tablets and instruments like that, the communication will always be there, because once we take it up on the web, then a farmer or his children can look at the communication at any time, and it's always available. So if they miss the communication the first time, they can go back, they can rewind, they can play again, or they can read again. So this is one of the areas in which we are focusing on enhancing. So just to inform our farmers, apart from, we will still continue reaching out into the fields and our bottom house sessions and so on, but we will also be uploading our stuff on social media and the kind of platforms so that the content will always be available.
Most farmers have probably never heard of the Seed Act or the Plant Protection Act. Well, there are those two acts, both coming into being in 2011. The agency responsible for the facilitation and enforcement of the provisions of these acts is the National Agriculture Research and Extension Institute, NARI. The Seed Act of 2011 states the following: no seed of any variety shall, for the purpose of sowing or planting by any person, be sold unless the seed is registered under subsection 2 by the agency in the manner as may be prescribed. The agency may register any variety of seed on the basis of information furnished by the producer on the condition of multi-location trials for at least 3 seasons for the variety, and after making sure that all the various agroecological zones of the country are covered under the trials. The agency may grant provisional registration to the variety of seed which is available in the market on the date of commencement of this act for any period as may be prescribed by it. This flies in the face of reports that farmers in East Berbice alone cultivated some 8,500 acres of 2 illegal varieties of rice supplied to them by a local miller without lawful registration of the seed and requisite period of field trials. These illegal varieties are being referred to as Donkey Man 1 and 2, that is of 90 days and 120 days duration. The GRDB says the illegal sale and cultivation of this unregistered variety will not be allowed to continue, and the recourse available under the Seed Act will be enforced from here on forward.
The board is aware of claims that 2 varieties have been cultivated in Region 6 that have not been produced or not of Guyanese origin. Recently we heard that as much as 3,500 hectares have been harvested. We want to inform all. We've heard that the local miller has been supplying these unknown varieties to the farmers, that this is an illegal activity and this will not be allowed to continue. There are consequences for such when varieties that have not followed the protocols, have not gone through the relevant quarantine processes and so on, are then introduced into our local production. Their negative and damaging effects can occur because of this. Like I mentioned, this will not be allowed to continue. We are encouraging the miller or millers that may have been involved in introducing unknown varieties to follow the relevant protocols as set out by the Seeds Act and the Plant Quarantine Act with regards to introducing any variety that has not been developed here in Guyana.
Head of NARI, the agency responsible for the application of the Seed Act, Dr. Udo Homnard, says his agency is aware of the illegal cultivation of the 2 varieties and spoke of the provisions of the Act and the penalties for those involved in the importation, sale, and cultivation of any such seeds in Guyana.
The importation of any seed material into Guyana has to be done according to the laws of this country. We have 2 specific, if you call them acts of parliament, the Seed Act of 2011 and the Plant Protection Act of 2011. And then there are stipulations. For any seed material to come into Guyana, it has to be done by a prescribed importer. In the case of rice, we are aware that we have been importing seed paddy from Brazil, and those were initially the upland varieties for cultivation at Santa Fe, and those were legal importations, specifically for the Rupununi area because they're highland upland varieties as we call them. Those imports were legal because they were done according to the prescribed manner. We have all information that is required in terms of pest risk analysis and everything else. Some years ago, I recollect that Fairfield Investments would have brought in a variety from Brazil, but they were targeting it for the stock feed industry, and that was legally done. However, what was found is that the farmers found that variety was well adapted here on our local conditions, and they went into cultivation. Not for the feed industry per se. It has become a variety that is done quite a bit in Region 5. We have had reports over the last few years of 2 additional varieties cultivated mainly in Region 6, principally in the Blackbush area. Those varieties, as we are currently doing some work in terms of characterizing those varieties, they are obviously varieties which came in the country illegally. Varieties that come in illegally, there are consequences which are not too good, because those varieties can be destroyed by the relevant authorities, because there is no documentation that they came here in the prescribed manner. We are aware that farmers are cultivating them, and currently the GRDB is doing some work in terms of characterizing, as I said. Now, bringing in varieties that are not certified is not good for the country. Rice is our major export. These varieties can bring into the country pests and diseases that we may not be aware of. Similarly, they could bring in weeds, the weed seeds with them that are unknown to, and they become invasive, let's say the weed or some other pest or disease that we are not accustomed to in Guyana. And that can have an effect on our traditional, or the varieties that currently we are developing at the GRDB. Of course, the GRDB has been working assiduously in terms of improving production and productivity, and a lot of it has to do with breeding. And we have seen the GRDB 15 performing very well, even in the last season, in terms of yields. They're getting, as prescribed, 40 bags per acre, which is one way in which the farmers are able to reduce or to make profit in rice cultivation, moving from 20 and 25 bags to 40 bags per acre, with the same similar fertilizer recommendations, similar management of pests and diseases. So it is not desirable for persons to just bring in a variety and bring it illegally. If it's done in a prescribed manner, it will have to go through a process. All we have to do is to ensure that it's recorded, and the GRDB will do the necessaries in terms of doing the agronomical work based on the data that comes with the variety, and that wouldn't be a problem. But once it becomes illegal, there is no documentation, we have issues, and I'm speaking strictly from a legal standpoint.
Also weighing in on the issue was Chief Scientist at the GRDB's research station in Burma, Dr. Mahendra Prasad. He said that he has had a look at the varieties and have found them to be of poor plant type, highly susceptible to lodging.
We have seen an upsurge of illegal varieties being propagated across the country, and more specifically, dominantly in Region 6, and now expanding more in Region 5. It is important to note these are illegal varieties, and nothing can say that you will plant them and they will be legal. They have came through illegal means. They have no testing have been done on them. The risk that these varieties pose to the country is enormous, and we all know that. The Seed Act is very clear. We cannot bring in any seed material and multiply it and distribute it without doing the prerequisite test and go through the procedure. And for rice, we have to be very, very careful. This is a national commodity. This is what we depend on. It's an industry, and we cannot risk the industry for the comfort of one or two persons. Just have a passion of bringing in something illegal and multiplying it and see it progress. I have had a look of these varieties, and regardless what has been said about them, the yields, these are a very, very poor plant type, and we can look at them, and they all large. We don't know what level of pest and disease resistance they have. We don't even know what pest and disease they have brought into the country when they came in. And those we will know later, once it starts multiply and affect our cultivation. So we must be careful about these things.
The provisions under the Seed Act and the Plant Protection Act caters for the destruction of any cultivation in which illegal plant types are found. Also provided for are fines and imprisonment for repeat offenders. GRDB's extension officers will be on the lookout for those engaged in the illegal distribution of these two unregistered varieties, as well as for those who cultivate for the upcoming crop. Red rice is similar to cultivated rice. It is often referred to as overhead or overhang and is often taller than the cultivated rice. However, because of its similarity to rice, it is regarded as a problematic weed since its control by chemical means is limited or near impossible. The main source of red rice infestation is rice seeds contaminated with weed seeds. The other source is red rice seeds left in the soil from previous crops. This means that any control measure should be aimed at the reduction of infestation from these sources. Red rice is a heavy seed producer, more than 1,000 seeds per plant. Seeds can remain inactive in the soil until conditions for growth become favorable. It is therefore imperative that farmers allow for a grow-out period every crop before sowing is done. In this regard, farmers should never rush through land preparation on lands that are known to have red rice infestations. Instead, the following steps should be taken. Burn the field after harvest. After the first plow, the field should be irrigated lightly so as to encourage germination and establishment of red rice seeds. The weedy seedlings should then be left to develop to the 2 to 3 leaf stage and then destroyed by plowing. Another flush of weeds would be encouraged, and this should be killed by another round of plowing. This should be done as part of land preparation for at least 2 successive crops to reduce infestation levels. A message from the Rice Research Station, Guyana Rice Development Board, Ministry of Agriculture. Coconut farmers across Guyana are invited to visit the Hope Estate for top quality coconut seedlings in any quantity. Now available are 5, 3, and 18-month varieties. It should be noted that the spacing of your coconut seedlings is determined by the variety you are planting. Persons interested in purchasing seedlings may make contact with Hope Estate on telephone numbers 256-0599 or 663-2709. A message from the management of Hope Estate, Ministry of Agriculture.
Climate change is now a real issue for Guyana's agricultural landscape. The Hydrometeorological Services Agromet Unit is urging all farmers to be aware of the weather factor and its impacts when planning their agricultural activities. The unit is further urging farmers to make use of the products tailored to their needs that are now available on the Hydromet website at hydromet.gov.gy. Click on the Farmers and Drought Monitoring Bulletins. These products will allow you to access various information such as seasonal outlooks and agricultural advisories. A message from the Hydromet Service, Ministry of Agriculture.
Well, that's all the time we have in this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture. A special edition, we focused on the first crop, the first rice crop of 2019. We've had mixed reviews, and of course, we brought you a wide perspective as it relates to how farmers performed in this first crop. Remember, this program is brought to you with the compliments of the Ministry of Agriculture and all its agencies therein. This Week in Agriculture is produced for television by Matrix Video Productions and Advertising based in East Berbice. I'm your producer and host, Christopher Holder. Until next time.